Hi there, this is Matt with State of Flux, and
Special guest, huge movie fanatic Nate. Welcome.
welcome, and we're going to be recording this for both channels.
We are recording this for both channels. I'm delighted to be here again, getting together with Matt again. Very exciting. Thank you for doing it, Matt.
Yeah, no problem. I wanted to do some more discussion videos. So this one is a general discussion, because back in the day on his channel, and you can go find the old videos.
Luckily now they changed it. Now you can search by oldest video.
Fantastic. I
Yes.
remember you mentioning...
Yeah, you couldn't last year, and then they switched it. They heard me.
Beautiful. Yeah, they probably did. We did a lot of reviews, and at the time, the
No one watched them.
the popular thing to do would take old IP and just remake it, repackage it, repurpose it,
God.
and we found ourselves giving a lot of negative reviews to, especially like 80s remake horror films. What has your opinion changed, or if it even has changed, with the introduction of the Legacy sequel? And and by Legacy sequel I mean taking a movie, doing essentially a remake of it, Force Awakens style, and then dropping in the old characters, so it acts as both a sequel, but it's also just kind of a firm remake.
I'd call it a sequel first, and with possible remake qualities. You know?
Yeah,
I don't
right.
think they wanted people to really catch on so much at how Force Awakens was a remake.
Yeah,
but it's so
the popular term Legacy sequel or requel.
Yeah.
Is so my.
Wind is,
Yeah,
what did you
wind
say?
is a thing.
Wind blows.
Wind blows. My question is, does that reframe how you feel about those maybe hollow remakes that we were getting in the 80s? Because at least they were not just kind of repackaging the exact same experience.
If your question, I don't know if you're asking this, but I'll simply say that if maybe you're asking this, maybe not. I prefer legacy sequels to remakes. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I'm just very curious because
I was really stupidly, I don't know why I was excited about Force Awakens. I was pretty excited about, because it's so funny, because at the time when they were making Force Awakens, like the thought was that the prequels were kind of crap, and like the sequel trilogy was going to be better and more like, oh my God, this might be on tier, because weren't there like writers involved that were involved with the original trilogy or something? I don't know.
Lawrence Kasdan.
Yeah, I remember talking about that, and I don't want to talk about all that, but anyway, long story not so long, I was excited foolishly about Force Awakens, like, wow, freaking Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford, like, holy cow, Millennium Falcon. I was like, oh my God, and I don't know where I was going.
So
after I saw it, I was extremely disappointed. I'll simply say that it's so funny how the Star Wars, in my opinion, except for we both talked about the fact that we regard the middle one as the best, but for more or less, the Star Wars sequel trilogy I regard as worse than the prequels.
Yeah, I agree.
It's so funny how they make the prequels look good.
Yeah, they do. Well, and I think that just goes to show that the prequels, even if they didn't move the needle much, they were still moving the needle forward. They were telling original stories to get to a certain point. They might have been doing it in a dumbass way.
What's really interesting about the prequels, as much as you may hate them, is a lot of people were saying, and kind of partly myself included, on one hand, that like with all the new production design for Phantom Menace and stuff, and the different ships and all these aliens we hadn't seen and stuff, people felt like, in a way, like this wasn't Star Wars. But I mean, you got to give George Lucas credit. He's giving us something new.
Yeah.
So it's like, in a way, we were complaining because it was too new, and then it's so funny when frickin' Force Awakens comes out, we're complaining because it's too similar. It's like,
well, and also, so like, there's complaints and stuff like that the remakes would take an idea and just do something similar, or give you a version of a remake that's kind of similar but also twist something. Generally, I'm thinking well, I guess Night of the Living Dead would count, but I'm thinking Hills Have Eyes, where like they were just hill folk in the original, and in the new one they're like mutant people, and like they really harken in on that one line in the original movie about the atomic bomb that even like Wes Craven on the commentary to that movie was like there was no intention that like they were just inbred. They weren't like yeah. So you got these like kind of dumb hollow remakes, but
I don't know if I'm answering your question.
no, you are.
What is your question?
My question is, how do you feel like so for movies maybe where we have the or like the remake and a legacy sequel out of them? I'm thinking like Halloween.
Right, that's a perfect example.
The Rob Zombie.
I'd much rather watch 2018 than the Rob Zombie Halloween.
Fascinating, interesting. Okay.
And what are you on the opposite end of that spectrum?
Rob Zombie all the way, because at least
that is so white trash.
It is,
but you love it.
It's not that I love it. It is white trash, but it's also something different. Whereas,
okay.
Like
yeah, but
the
stupid different.
The legacy sequel is literally just the same thing again, or taking from other movies. Like he set the needle back.
I'm not going to argue that 2018 isn't basically a remake.
No, I agree. But like the thing is like, what's the point of undoing all of the continuity only to tell the exact same story again? It's essentially the same movie of the first one with the great kill shot.
Careful.
Yeah, I crack knuckles.
Jesus.
Where he does the walking around house to house kill shot that essentially is from like Halloween 2, and then giving Laurie Strode the same motivation she had from H2O. Like, why? At the same time, we got something in the Halloween Rob Zombie that we hadn't gotten before, which was Michael's perspective. And I like that movie shows us Michael's perspective. Everything's framed around that. So it's an aggressive movie. It's an angry movie. It's an angsty movie. It's an ugly movie. It's gross.
Agreed.
But that is who Michael is at the end of the day, and what we've been told he is, and we've never experienced that. There's a softness to those first 8 movies because the Michael perspective is absent from it, and the perspective we're given is Laurie Strode or Jamie Lloyd or
whoever.
Who is the main character of Resurrection?
Oh, okay.
But
American Pie guy.
Yeah, I guess. But there's that aspect of it that I think we were really critical of back in the day that I'm softer on now. Like, I think that's better than what we got here. But the contrast of that would be like Ghostbusters, which I didn't dislike the 2016 movie. I think it's better than Ghostbusters 2 in a lot of ways. But I did like the legacy sequel for Ghostbusters with Afterlife. That being said, I also think that movie diminishes what the first movie and its sequel were by not making it really a comedy at all anymore. And
yeah, that's one of my big problems with movies as a whole now, is they just seem to, like, even movies that or franchises and things that maybe traditionally were fun in the 80s and things, that's a really good point. It's so gloomy and dark and just serious now.
Yeah.
And it's just like, God, it's almost, and maybe people would call that pretentious, or how there's elevated horror. It's like elevated everything, elevated action, we gotta be so serious. That's a good point.
And I think Scream is interesting in that it did both. Scream 4 was a riff on the 2000s trend of hollowly remaking a movie by giving you the same thing, just slightly different, tweaking it. We're back in Woodsboro. We're going to give you this gloss of a film. It's the only one that looks like that, but it's also looking like those movies of their time. And then you get...
Maybe you can hear us right now.
Yeah.
That's a lull in the wind.
Then you get Scream 2022, which is also kind of a remake, but a legacy sequel that's very firm in that stance, commenting on legacy sequels and stuff like that. I think Scream is a kind of weird movie where Scream, Scream 4, and Scream 5 are all essentially the exact same movie, but is interesting because they're commenting on those aspects.
It's funny because in a way they could keep doing that forever, just kind of like remaking Scream
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm pretty sure I said in my review that that for me I really liked 5, and 5 was what I kind of hoped 4 would be. I think is what I kind of said.
And I think I list a little more that 4 is better than 5, but I like 5 quite a bit, like a lot. I have
5
days
is better
where
than 4, but I like.
I
4.
have days where I go back and forth on it, but that's interesting that you respond better to the actual legacy sequel film than you do the remake film.
One thing I can say for Scream 4 is having revisited them all last year is the two geeks like Culkin, whoever he is, and the two geeks with their little things screaming. They're really cool, like Scream-esque nerd characters. I liked revisiting it. Like they were really they really stood out for me a lot more than they had prior when I watched it again last year.
Yeah. So I basically was just wondering and picking your brain on this.
Yeah. So to make a long story not as long, like in the early 2000s when it was like Chainsaw and The Fog and all these just like hollow remakes for remake's sake, whatever else they came up with, Halloween. I think they did a lot.
Texas Chainsaw is a good example of this because they did the 2003 one, which I was not in love with, but I thought it was one of the better ones in the franchise. Didn't really like it, but after watching the Legacy sequel that dropped on Netflix in 2022, which I think is the worst movie of 2022, I despise that movie with every fiber of my being. The 2003 one's looking real pretty.
It's funny how, as time goes on, movies get so shitty. What we thought was shitty a decade earlier is looking okay.
Yeah, it's kind of strange.
But what I was gonna say is, I was so pissed off in the early 2000s about sequels. I'm not. The Legacy sequels don't bother me very much at all. Like, I guess it's almost a different way of kind of. Instead of doing a remake, we're going to do a Legacy sequel, which, as we've already covered, can be more or less a remake anyway.
Yeah.
But at least it's cool to have, like, instead of all new faces, like, it's cool to see, like, when the original Ghostbusters showed up at the end of the Afterlife. For me, that was cool.
That movie made me profusely cry at the end. Like, I think the emotional connection that you have to Spangler, and by the end when the other Ghostbusters show up, is very powerful filmmaking.
So
whether or not it's right for a Ghostbusters franchise is a different argument. But
exactly.
That was my favorite moment of the year that year in cinema.
Okay. The thing I like, particularly appreciate about Legacy sequels versus remakes is the opportunity to actually see some of the original aged, having since aged cast from some of the, Jamie Lee Curtis again.
Yeah.
They even had what's her name. Not that it was a big deal. It was a big deal in the publicity, but in the movie, like having the original Lindsay back, it doesn't really matter. And
why'd they bring her back?
just to say they did.
She had a scary moment in the second one, and then she's there in the third one, but like. That could have been anybody. That could have been a tree.
I know, and I don't know why the original kid didn't come back. I don't know if he was dead or just didn't want anything to do with it, whatever. It's funny seeing Anthony Michael Hall, but anyway, we've got other things to do. Did we pretty much...
Last question. I haven't watched it yet. Have you watched Exorcist Believer?
Yeah, that's the
one that came out in like November or whatever, this past year.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was on Peacock, so I saw it. Yeah.
Okay.
Have you not seen it?
No, I have not.
I've got a review of you, but you might not want to be spoiled.
Yeah.
Did you want my quick review?
Just quick. Did you like it?
I thought I was surprised because I think it was the director of the Halloween trilogy.
That's why I didn't see it.
Yeah. I was impressed. It's a better film, I think, overall than the Halloween trilogy. Like, I was impressed that he was able to create something that was more mature. But I actually kind of like the main characters, but like the Exorcist elements are kind of like roll your eyes, and of course bringing the original mom back is kind of like give me a break. And so it's funny because I think I pretty much said in my review that as a movie, in 2023, I thought it wasn't horrible, especially from that guy, but as an Exorcist movie, it's nothing.
Okay.
In my opinion. That's my short
All right.
review.
Well, thanks for watching on State of Flux here, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks for watching on Huge Movie Fanatics and State of Flux. It's really cool to be back with you guys again, and thank you very much, Matt, once again for getting together and having me on your channel.
Yeah. Thanks for watching.
Thanks. See you, everyone.
Bye.